Hey everyone and welcome back to DRT. So today we are talking about this bad boy. Yes, we are talking about the Sony PSP and the JRPGs that are on the system. And let me tell you, there are an abundance of JRPGs on this system. So it was really hard for me to try and come up and think of what 10 I would pick. So I've invited some of my favorite YouTube content creators onto the channel to discuss what their favorite JRPGs are. Let us know down in the comments below if your JRPG turns up in this little list, and if it doesn't, tell us which one you pick. But until then, let's get into the video. But before we do, can you please chuck us a little like, maybe even subscribe if you enjoy the content on the channel. It really helps out a bunch. But until then, let's get into it.
What's up everyone, I'm Luca and I haven't touched my PP in a very long time.
Dude, it's PSP, not PP. What's wrong with you?
Oh, I'm sorry. What's up everyone, I'm Luca from feiitogaming and I haven't touched my PSP in a very long time. Still, it's a console I have fond memories of, and that's mainly because of the great JRPGs on the system. One of my favorites is Lord of Arcana. Okay, to be fair, it's a bit of a stretch to call Lord of Arcana a JRPG, but it shares a lot of elements, so that's enough for me. It's really sad that so few people know this game, although it's inspired by one of the most popular action RPG series ever, Monster Hunter. You create a character, fight monsters and demons to get their body parts, and forge new weapons and armor to repeat the whole thing. Lord of Arcana still sets itself apart from its inspiration and comes with its own ideas. What I really like is that, unlike Monster Hunter, there are weak mobs in every area, which drop useful stuff that can help to defeat the next big boss. These bosses are well designed and really challenging thanks to a wide range of their combat mechanics. Oh, and on a side note, some bosses are cameos from Final Fantasy like Needhogg and Bahamut, which is really cool. Combat itself may be a bit stiff for today's standards, but I still like it because you get a bunch of cool magic to use and boss encounters always end with cinematic quicktime events. I know, but I really enjoyed that. Overall, combat is really intense because bosses essentially have unique mechanics and weaknesses to figure out. That way there's a lot of room to get better and better, which is just so rewarding and fun. Oh man, I wish Square Enix would do a remaster on consoles. That would be dope. Anyway, thanks so much for having me, James. It's an honor to be part of this collaboration. Guys, let myself and James know in the comments what you think about Lord of Arcana and if I'm being crazy for loving this game. Alright, see you guys next time.
Hey everyone, what up? Matt Kaiser here, and thank you DReviewTing for allowing me to be in your collab. It was an absolute pleasure. That said, I'm going to talk about my favorite PSP JRPG, and that would have to be Kingdom Hearts Birth by Sleep. Now, like I love Kingdom Hearts games, this is of course another bridge title that's really relevant to the main Kingdom Hearts series, though follows in the same shoes as, say, Crisis Core to Final Fantasy VII, as it's actually a prequel to the original Kingdom Hearts 1. And this one follows a new direction for this series in a sense, as we follow more to the Xehanort saga. This time we get to have now 3 new campaigns with 3 new characters, that being of course Ventus, Terra and Aqua, each with their own unique playstyles and each of their stories that sort of overlap but still have their own perspectives and make themselves relatively interesting, as well as some just interesting Disney interactions in general, and just some truly tragic and sad moments. I mean, of course, it's a prequel, so expect some sad and tragic, depressing stuff. Coupled with that, you also have a brand new combat system with the command deck, which I know is an acquired taste, but relatively is sort of fun for the most part, with the command decks and some of them just being well fun to use. Especially Aqua with her magic based gameplay, which is my favorite out of the main 3. Also, you have some really solid Disney worlds, with some of them being ones from Cinderella, as well as one from Disney Town, and you got some really interesting lore regarding the series in general. Overall, coupled that with an amazing score, and really, it's probably one of the better Kingdom Hearts titles in general, and honestly, it's one I will never forget my times with, both positives and gripes. And thankfully, it's now available on more modern systems with the Cage 2.5 remix version for like PlayStation 4, 5, Xbox One, Xbox Series and PC. We do not talk about the cloud version though.
Yikes.
But regardless, with that said, that is my pick. Thank you, DReviewTing, for allowing me to be in your collab. It was an absolute pleasure. I can't wait to see what the others' picks are. But until then, Mad Kaiser, out.
What's going on, guys? uppernimbus here. So when James had asked me what's one of the best JRPGs on the PSP, I had to go with none other than Persona 3 Portable. As the game's name implies, Persona 3 Portable is a portable version of the original game which was released for the PSP back in 2010. Persona 3 Portable is more of a light version of the game compared to its original counterpart, where both the animated cutscenes and 3D models have been replaced in favor of a visual novel approach instead. This isn't necessarily a bad thing, as the whole idea was to convey a feeling of portability and convenience for the player on the go with their PSP, and to be able to open up the game for quicker bursts of gameplay and accessibility. In exchange for the removal of cutscenes and 3D models and environments, Persona 3 Portable includes its own set of new features and quality of life improvements. There's even a secondary story mode where you can play as a female protagonist, which includes new social links, different dialogue, and new ending scenes that unlock even more social links found within New Game Plus. On top of all of that, there's also an alternative Velvet Room attendant called Theodore, and they can be selected when speaking with Igor early on within the game. Persona 3 Portable also adds two other difficulty options as well, one essentially for beginners, and one for players looking for a tougher challenge through the ultra hard Maniac mode. Persona 3 Portable is an absolutely classic and essential JRPG that you should play on your PSP console, and one that is definitely worthy of owning physically in your gaming collection. There's actually quite a few variations of this game out there, such as Persona 3 Fez and the newly released Persona 3 Reload, but Persona 3 Portable manages to capture my heart with its visual novel aesthetic and cozy approach to gameplay. So if you can, be sure to give this classic JRPG a chance. James from DReviewTing, thank you so much for inviting me on this collaboration of yours, and as always on these collabs, I look forward to everybody else's choice within this video. So until the next time, everybody, uppernimbus is signing off.
Hello there, it's Drew aka Public Enema, and I'm going to be talking about Trails in the Sky. Trails in the Sky follows the stories of Estelle and Joshua Bright and their quest to become senior bracers. Bracers are an organization that are not quite military, not quite police, but their main focus is to kind of serve and protect the citizenry. The story starts off as a pretty slow burn and feels very slice of life to begin with, until it's not. Those who can be patient with the slow start are rewarded with a fantastic first chapter to a series that's still ongoing to this day. So what makes Trails in the Sky so special? For me, it starts with the characters. Estelle Bright is one of my favorite main characters in any game, period. She's a breath of fresh air, she's not moody, she's not emo, she's just this bright, positive force that just tears through people's lives. And not just the playable characters, but the NPCs throughout the world are so well developed. Falcom does a great job of making the world of Liberl feel real and lived in. On top of the characters, you've got fantastic music from Falcom sound team JDK, as always. And for a game released originally in 2004, I think the art style still holds up pretty well to this day. It's a turn-based battle system where you'll fight with a combination of regular attacks, magic attacks in the form of horrible arts, and then each character has their own individual and unique special attacks that they bring along to the party. Physical copies for the PSP might be hard to come by, but the good news is it's available on PC and runs great on a Steam Deck, and if the rumors are to be believed, there's probably a Switch port coming in the near future as well. So if you're in the market for a grand JRPG adventure, you can't do much better than Trails in the Sky. It's one of my favorite games, and if you give it a shot, you might fall in love with it too. And if you do fall in love with it, there's like 10 more games in the series to keep you busy for a while. So big shout out to James of DReviewTing for having me on the channel. The PSP was such a gem for JRPGs, so I can't wait to see what everybody else came up with, and I'll catch you next time.
Hi there everybody, this is David over at the channel davidvinc, and thank you so much James for having me on. Whenever you reached out to me and you asked me about my favorite PSP RPGs, I had a lot of them in mind. I think that the PSP has a fantastic library, although it has a bad reputation as being like nothing but ports, but that couldn't be further from the case. the first game that I actually went and bought the PSP for is still my favorite game on the PSP, and that is Popo Lo Croix. This is actually a combination of two different games that were originally released on the PlayStation, but only in Japan. It was Popo Lo Croix 1 and 2. They were put together and combined into one game, and the reason why we didn't get those games here in America is because they weren't in 3D, and Sony of America wanted us to have 3D games. So you know what game we got instead as our first RPG? The fantastic Beyond the Beyond. Yeah, so, I don't know why we didn't get the good game and we got the bad game, but whatever. We got access to it over on the PSP, and it is so good. The remake actually combines the first two games into one thrilling story as your hero, Prince Pietro, goes on a journey to save his mother's soul. And along the way, he meets some unforgettable, colorful characters that you just will not forget and you will fall in love with. The world map is like completely interconnected with one another, and it naturally like flows together. Kind of like the world map in Earthbound. It's just huge. There's secrets and treasures around every single corner. And the battle system, it's really similar to Trails in the Sky. You're like fighting on a grid, and the attacks that you use affect the squares on the grid rather than the enemy. So you could use like a sword fighting skill that hits 4 squares and hit like 3 different enemies if you target the squares properly. The entire game is timeless, it's beautiful, and no gamer should be without it in their collection. Thank you again for having me on your channel to discuss this perfect little gem, and I hope to see all of y'all on my channel, davidvinc, in the future. Have a good day, everybody.
Hey everyone, I'm SuperDerek, and thanks for having me on to DRT here. Over the years, I've played a lot of RPGs, and while the PSP has a robust library of RPGs, the one that really stuck with me the longest is Persona 2 Innocent Sin. It might surprise you to learn that there are 2 Persona 2 games, and that we never got Part 1 in the West until Innocent Sin came out on the PSP. So yeah, if you ever played Persona 2 on PlayStation 1, surprise, you were playing Part 2. This game came out before the Persona series fused with the relationship sim genre, so what we have here is a more traditional turn-based RPG that feels like a PlayStation 1 title, not too dissimilar to Breath of Fire 4. And side tangent, Breath of Fire 3 also came out on PSP, so check that out, it's really good too. But the main reason this one stuck with me all these years is the incredible character development of the main cast of heroes. This stuck with me as one of the first RPGs that I played where the cast actually felt like they had a group chemistry, a group dynamic, and a complicated one at that. Of course, combat is fun, and the enhanced PSP port streamlined it a lot over the original PS1 release, but for me at least, the story of this team summoning their inner demons to fight other demons, juxtaposed against them struggling with their own metaphorical inner demons, is well worth the 50-hour playthrough.
Hey everybody, Eric here. Thank you so much, James, for having me on today to chat about one of my favorite PSP games of all time, Dissidia. Final Fantasy, the ultimate crossover game you never knew you needed until you got it. Total mind blower. I love it. Dissidia on the PSP is a unique fighting game that brings together iconic characters from the Final Fantasy series, and unlike traditional fighting games, Dissidia has a fresh take on the genre, pitting the heroes versus the villains from Final Fantasy titles, each with their own distinct fighting style, special moves that reflect their personalities and abilities from the original games. Now, if you guys remember Final Fantasy VII Advent Children, the fighting in that movie was absolutely incredible, and when we finally got Dissidia on our hands, I feel like they somehow got that fighting style from the movie and put it into a game. It was really gratifying, really awesome to play. The story mode called Destiny Odyssey is probably the highlight of this game, aside from the battle system, offering a unique narrative structure, allowing players to experience the plot from perspectives of all the different characters in the game. The story is kind of cliche. It's really only there to kind of make the characters fight, more or less, but it's a fight between the gods Cosmos and Chaos, who summon heroes and villains to fight in their stead, providing a engaging backdrop for the action, enriched by the interactions and the rivalries of our beloved characters. Now, like I said, the battle system in Dissidia is really awesome, blending fast-paced action with RPG mechanics. You can customize your characters with different loadouts and equipments, and battles are just super fast and super fun. Now, honestly, for a PSP title, Dissidia is really graphically impressive, boasting detailed character models and vibrant environments. And the soundtrack is amazing, including remixes of classic Final Fantasy themes to enhance this nostalgic package. And for a PSP game, the controls are really tight and responsive, of course taking a little bit of time to get used to, but I absolutely love this game. And to me, this game is 100% must play. I remember playing this game before it even came out in English, getting a Japanese ROM of it, having my friend wirelessly transfer the ROM from his PSP to my PSP while we were in homeroom in high school. And by the time we finally got together in the second period, we were fighting each other and playing this amazing game in Japanese. I had no idea what the story was or what was happening, but I didn't care because I could play as Cloud versus Squall. It was totally awesome. A true Final Fantasy fan service nostalgic package. I mean, I love these games. Dissidia is awesome, and I really hope they bring this series back. So there you have it, Dissidia Final Fantasy, one of the coolest and fastest paced action games, or RPGs in general, on the PSP, which was a really great system, one of my favorite systems. So thank you so much, James, for having me on today to chat about this amazing game that I haven't played in so long. I should actually go back to it. It's really fun and really nostalgic, actually thinking about this game now. So anyway, thanks for having me on. On to the next one.
Hello, John aka chickenfillets here. Now thank you to the one and only James from DReviewTing to ask me about PSP games that you should play. Now I am here in sunny old Wales on the beach. So I thought this would be the most appropriate place to tell you about a PSP game that you should play. Now, today's choice is going to be Star Ocean's Second Story Evolution for the PSP, the Square Enix sci-fi JRPG classic. Now in this, it is action-based combat where you can pick between two different characters. You can play between, I was about to say Reen Schwarzer, but that's Trails of Cold Steel, Reyna, that's one of them, and Claude. So in this, you are basically finding out the reasoning behind this sorcery globe. Very sci-fi, fantastic game. Now, the whole reason... Uh-oh. The man who has given up on the PSP is behind me. Oh my god.
What's up, my friends? retrobrandon here, and one of my favorite games on the PSP, maybe of all time, was Final Fantasy Tactics War of the Lions. Now, when I first played Final Fantasy Tactics, I hated it. In one of the first outings, I got killed by a chocobo. I was so stunned that I got killed by a chocobo of all things that I quit. But a friend of mine helped me figure out some of the basics, and once I figured it out, I ended up becoming absolutely addicted to this game. Fast forward, and I got myself a PSP, which is a fun story for another time. This version of the game came with a ton of quality of life updates, like retranslations, new jobs, updates to some of the existing jobs, these awesome animated movies with voice acting and subtitles, which added a ton of life to an already awesome game, and my personal favorite additions, Luso from Final Fantasy Tactics A2, and Balthier from Final Fantasy XII. If you know anything about me, you know that I actually enjoy grinding quite a bit, and I love job systems. So this game was such a treat. But one specific example that I loved in this game was actually the Sky Pirate job class that came with Balthier, which includes an attack called Barrage, where you can hit 4 times in a row. There was also a level down trap on one of the maps that you could totally abuse. So what you would do is you would level down with a low stat class, and then you would level back up with a high stat class. Rinse and repeat. And suddenly you have insane characters that could dish out crazy numbers. Then you just give old Balthier dual wield with knight swords, with barrage, and with those max stats, you basically have him hitting 8 times in a row at max damage. So basically taking down the last boss was, as simple as 1 turn. And it was amazing. Anyway, I don't want to go into more detail about the story or characters because this game is incredible, but I do want to note that this is some of the best storytelling of the entire Final Fantasy franchise, and it should definitely get some more love. Don't miss this one. And if rumors and leaks are to be believed, and Square hasn't canceled it, I'm really looking forward to seeing if they remaster or remake this one again for modern platforms. Because currently, the only other way to play this is on your phone, which is kind of dumb.
Anyway, thanks for having me on, James. And if you're a fan of retro games with a major dose of RPGs and nostalgia, check me out over at retrobrandon. And I'll see you over there.
So when trying to decide what one I was going to pick, what JRPG I was going to pick for this system, it was a really difficult decision because my heart instantly went to Crisis Core because that game is absolutely phenomenal. However, recently, it's been re-released on other systems, and in my opinion, that is my preferred way to actually play this game now. So I had to pick my now favorite PSP JRPG, which is Ys Oath in Felghana. Ys Oath in Felghana is regarded as the peak of the Ys series years before Lacrimosa of Dana came out. It is mostly because the gameplay is just right. The game has tight controls, clean dungeon designs, and boss fights that'll probably kick your backside. However, it is surprisingly reasonable for its learning curves. Adult Christian and his friend Dogi visit Dogi's hometown of Felghana after 8 years of being away on a path of self-discovery. The game takes place 3 years after the events of the first two games. Upon arrival, they bump into Elena, who was under attack outside of the town. After saving her, they discover that evil forces have threatened the townspeople, and a lot of things have changed since Dogi was last here. Elena voices concern that her brother Chester has been missing for the last few months, and she is worried. However, through exploration through Felghana, not all is as it seems. Chester hasn't actually gone missing, but is seeking revenge for the death of his parents that Count Maguire instigated when burning Genis Island to the ground. Chester cunningly integrates himself as the Count's most loyal knight, awaiting the perfect moment to exact his revenge and bring on the Count's downfall. The gameplay of Ys is where it's actually at. A simple mixture of semi-strategic hack and slash with a dabble of platforming RPG-like elements. The combat is fast, fluid, and when you get hit, it's ultimately your own fault. The game doesn't offer that much in terms of different combos. You can perform basic ground attacks. You can't knock an enemy into the air and combo them further. What you can do though is cancel combos and get more hits in. In this game there are 3 elemental attacks. There's a fireball projectile, a whirlwind attack, and an earth-based dash. The most useful element is the earth dash as it nullifies enemies' attacks. Once you get this magic, it'll be your go-to magic. This is because the game doesn't feature a shield or a dodge roll. Level design is really where this Falcom game shines. It's simplistic yet very well done. The platforming segments, mainly located towards the end of the game, are well thought out. I initially believed I was going to have some trouble with them until I realised that my character's shadow does appear on the ground. And if platforming isn't your thing, there is an option within the settings that can stop you from falling. The bosses in this game are actually a lot of fun as well. Each boss fight presents a new challenge and build upon each other as the game progresses, with the new elemental attacks that you have learned playing a part in defeating them. This game is also really friendly to newcomers as well to the series, and it doesn't require a lot of grinding. Ys Oath in Felghana is a quick-paced narrative game which includes twists and turns as well as a fantastic OST. This game is all killer and no filler, so go check it out. And there we go guys, so that is 10 JRPGs on the PSP. Did yours turn up in the list? I'd love to know. Let us know down in the comments below. Also, I would like to put a big thank you out there to absolutely every single one of the creators that came on to help me do this. I definitely couldn't have picked the list alone, and these guys, they definitely know what they're talking about. So if you like their stuff, make sure you go over and give them a follow, give them a like. Most of them hopefully you already know. They're absolutely fantastic. So I'd like to thank them all for coming on. And until then, I suppose that's really it. Thank you very much for watching the video, and we'll see you next time.